The most dangerous man on the eastern seaboard couldn't eat soup without shaking half of it onto his shirt. Nobody knew this except Dowd, and Dowd had learned not to look. 8 months ago, Hollis Cray had been the kind of man that port inspectors addressed as Sir with their eyes on their shoes. He ran Cray Maritime Logistics out of a glass tower on the Baltimore harbor, legitimate on paper, catastrophic in reality. $300 million moved through his accounts every quarter in shipping containers full of things that didn't appear on any manifest. He had judges, he had aldermen, he had an entire city held inside a fist that never opened. Then a man named Selig decided to see what happened when you held a live wire against someone's wrists for 45 minutes. Cray survived. The nerve damage in his right hand did not. The tremor started small, a rattle in his coffee cup, a slight wobble when he signed his name. 8 months later, it had spread to both hands. Unpredictable. Stress made it worse. Running a criminal empire generated, as it turned out, a considerable amount of stress. His personal chef had quit in April after the third time Cray threw a plate across the dining room in humiliated rage. The kitchen on the 42nd floor sat empty. His doctor had recommended soft foods, small portions. His underboss Dowd had started cutting Cray's steak in secret before bringing it in, using the excuse that the knife needed sharpening. Cray knew. He said nothing. The silence between them on the subject was a shared mercy. He was 42 years old. He had rebuilt this syndicate from nothing after his father burned it to the ground. He commanded men who broke bones for a living. He ate standing over the sink alone, so nobody would see him drop the fork. Senna Bragg had been a forensic accountant for 11 years. She had a talent for finding the number that didn't belong, the one sitting just slightly wrong in a column, like a tooth that won't seat flush in the jaw. Her former employer, a mid-size shipping firm called Delacourt Group, had paid her well to find other people's bad numbers. She had not expected that finding her own employer's bad numbers would end her career. The SEC had been grateful. Delacourt's legal team had been considerably less so. The wrongful termination case was still grinding through the courts. In the meantime, her name in the industry had become synonymous with a particular kind of professional inconvenience, and nobody hired inconveniences. Her mother's dialysis cost $4,000 a month. Night building maintenance paid $19 an hour, no questions about employment gaps. So Senna showed up at the Cray Maritime Tower at 10 p.m. 5 nights a week, signed in under a staffing agency name nobody checked, and cleaned floors that probably cost more per square foot than her entire apartment. She kept her head down. She wore her hair back. She did not make eye contact with the men in dark suits who moved through the corridors at strange hours. She had learned enough at Delacourt to understand what this building really was, and understanding meant she understood that her value here was in being completely invisible. The 42nd floor kitchen was her last stop every Thursday. It was never used, the size of her first apartment and full of gleaming appliances that had never seen food. She wiped the counters, mopped the tile, checked her watch. 11:50, running late. Her stomach had been making its complaints known since 9. She'd had a protein bar on the bus. It tasted like sweetened cardboard. She looked at the kitchen, then at the door, then at the kitchen again. There was a bag of rolled oats in the back of a cabinet, the kind someone had left there for the idea of healthy breakfasts that never happened. A tin of brown sugar, a carton of heavy cream in the back of the refrigerator, still sealed, expiration date a week out. It wasn't stealing, it was using food that was going to go bad anyway. She told herself this 3 times while she got out a small saucepan. The oats took 4 minutes. She added water first, then a splash of cream when it started to thicken, then brown sugar, then salt, always salt. Her grandmother had taught her, even in sweet things. She didn't have a bowl. She found a plain white mug in the back of a cabinet, the kind offices ordered by the gross. She ladled the oatmeal in, found a spoon, and leaned against the counter. The door opened. Senna went very still. Dowd stood in the doorway. He was a compact man with close-cropped grey hair and the kind of face that had stopped being surprised by anything approximately 15 years ago. He looked at her. He looked at the mug. He sniffed the air the way a man does when he has been hoping for something without knowing it. "That for anyone?" he asked. "Me," Senna said. "I'm sorry, I found the oats in the cabinet I was going to." "What's in it?" She blinked. "Oats cream, brown sugar, salt." He was already moving to a cabinet, pulling out a serving tray she hadn't noticed behind the platters. He set her mug on it. He added a clean spoon from the drawer. "Wait," Senna said, "that's mine." "It'll be replaced." He picked up the tray. "And so will you if this conversation ever happened. Understood?" She understood. He walked out. Senna stood in the empty kitchen with no dinner and a very clear understanding of what she was worth in this building. She washed the saucepan. She mopped the floor. She signed out at 12:40 and took the bus home. She did not sleep particularly well. The oatmeal reached Cray's desk at 10 past midnight. He almost didn't take it. He said, "Take it away twice." Dowd set it on the desk anyway and stood there with the specific immovability of a man who has made a decision for someone else's benefit and will not be argued out of it. Cray looked at the mug. He'd been expecting something elaborate, something in a delivery bag with a logo, something that required silverware and came in multiple courses. What he saw was a plain office mug, the kind without a handle logo, filled with something pale and steaming. He waited for his body to make its familiar objection. The smell usually triggered it. Something too rich, too complex, too much. The oatmeal smelled like a Sunday morning in 1991. It smelled like his grandmother's kitchen in the Dorchester row house before everything. Salt and cream and brown sugar. Nothing threatening, nothing that cost anything. His right hand was doing its usual low-grade tremor. He picked up the spoon with his left. He had gotten better at that. He took a spoonful. It was warm, dense. The cream had made it velvety without making it heavy. The salt kept the sweetness honest. It went down easy, the way nothing had gone down easy in 8 months, and his stomach accepted it the way a locked door accepts the right key. He ate the entire mug. He sat back in his chair. The harbor lights flickered through the floor-to-ceiling glass. His hands were resting on the armrests, and they were, for the first time in weeks, completely still. "Who made this?" Cray said it wasn't a question. Dowd shifted slightly. "Cleaning crew, night shift." Cray turned to look at his underboss fully. "Bring her up." Senna was in the elevator before she fully understood what was happening. She'd been told, not asked. One of the men in dark suits had appeared in the parking garage as she was leaving. Said Mr. Cray wants a word, and she had calculated in approximately 3 seconds that refusal was not among her available options. The 42nd floor looked different at this hour. The offices were dark. Only Cray's corner was lit. Warm amber against the glass. She was shown to the door and left standing in front of it. She knocked. "Come in." He was behind the desk. She had seen him before in the way you see powerful men, at a distance, briefly, the impression of someone who occupied more space than his physical body accounted for. Up close, the reality of him was complicated. He was broad-shouldered and dark-haired, with the kind of face that would have been handsome if it hadn't been used so hard. Deep-set eyes, a scar along the left jaw, and the particular quality of stillness that belongs to men who have learned to hold very still when they are in pain. He was wearing a dress shirt, sleeves rolled to the elbows. His hands were on the desk. She looked at them. She looked away. She had spent 11 years on forensic work. She recognized the aftermath of nerve damage when she saw it. "You made the oatmeal," Cray said. Senna kept her voice even. "I used food that was going to be thrown out. I can reimburse you for the oats if..." What was in it? Rolled oats, brown sugar, salt. He was quiet. No butter. "I didn't see any." He looked at her the way a man looks at an equation that keeps producing a result he hadn't predicted. She looked back. She had decided on the elevator ride up that she was going to be honest. Honest was the only thing she had left that was worth anything. I was hungry, Senna said. I work a 10-hour shift and I eat what I can carry in my bag. The oats were going to sit in that cabinet until somebody threw them out. I made myself dinner. I'm sorry your man took it before I could eat it. Something moved behind Cray's eyes. Not a smile. The ghost of one. The impression a smile might leave if it had passed through a very long time ago. You're the one who reported Delacourt, he said. Her stomach dropped. I don't know what. I know what moves through this building. I know who works in it. He set a manila folder on the desk without opening it. Forensic accounting. 18 months out of work. Mother on dialysis. Senna said nothing. I have a proposal, Cray said. He laid one hand flat on the desk. She noticed the slight effort it cost, the way he pressed his palm down to stop it from moving. You stop cleaning floors. You work for me directly. One job. You make my meals. I'm not a cook. I know. His voice was flat, not unkind. I've had 3 chefs in 8 months. They all made food that cost more than your monthly rent. I kept none of it down. He held out the folder. She crossed to the desk and took it. Inside was a single check. The number required a slow breath through her nose to keep her face neutral. Weekly, Cray said. You make what you know how to make. Nothing complicated. Nothing that requires more than 5 ingredients. You have full access to the kitchen, and nobody comes in while you're working. And if you don't keep it down, then we try again. Senna looked at the check. She looked at the man across the desk, whose hands were pressed flat against the mahogany like he was holding himself to the earth. She thought about $4,000 a month. She thought about her mother's machine and the sound it made. I need to know what you can't tolerate, she said. Too acidic, too rich, too heavy. I need specifics. Cray raised an eyebrow. You're negotiating. I'm gathering data. There's a difference. The ghost of a smile came back. This time it almost made it. Talk to Dowd. He knows what the doctors said. I want to hear it from you. A pause long enough that she thought she'd overstepped. Then Cray sat back and told her. He told her with the flat precision of a man reading a legal brief. Nerve damage, stress response, the specific way his body had learned to treat food as a threat. No search for sympathy. He laid out facts the way she laid out columns of numbers. She listened. She took no notes. She didn't need to. Tomorrow morning, Senna said when he finished. 7 o'clock. I'll need access to the kitchen tonight to check inventory. You start now, Cray said. She looked at the time, 1:15 in the morning. Then give me 20 minutes and stay out of the kitchen. She made him congee. Not the restaurant kind. Her version, the one her mother made from leftover rice when money was short. She found jasmine rice in the back of the pantry and cooked it long, stirring until the grains dissolved completely into something thick and porridge soft. Ginger from the spice rack, a splash of soy, white pepper. She cracked an egg into the hot congee and stirred it through so it cooked in threads of gold. Salt, a few drops of sesame oil. She brought it up in a wide, shallow bowl, wide enough that a spoon wasn't necessary, wide enough that a man could lift it with both hands and drink from the rim without needing to be precise about anything. She set it on his desk. She placed a spoon beside it. Then she moved the spoon 6 inches away from his right hand. Cray looked at the bowl. He looked at the spoon sitting slightly out of easy reach. He looked at her. The bowl is lighter than it looks, Senna said, in the same voice she used to explain audit findings. Easier to manage that way. A long silence. He picked up the bowl with both hands, lifted it. His hands were not entirely steady, but the bowl was wide enough, stable enough that it didn't matter. He drank from the rim. He ate without spilling. When the bowl was empty, he set it down. He was quiet for a full minute. Tomorrow, he said, 7. Senna nodded. She picked up the empty bowl and walked to the door. Miss Bragg. She turned. The account with Moreland Collections, Cray said, and named the medical billing agency that had been leaving voicemails on her phone for 3 months straight. It's settled. As of tonight. Senna opened her mouth. She closed it. She kept her face very carefully neutral. That wasn't part of the negotiation, she said. Consider it an amendment to the terms. She walked out. She stood in the elevator with her hands flat against her thighs and her eyes on the numbers above the door, and she thought about the way he had lifted that bowl, and the effort it cost him that he'd made look like nothing at all, and she understood that particular skill from the inside of it, the performance of ease over difficulty, every single day, until you forgot there was a performance. 3 months built themselves quietly, one meal at a time. The first month was repair, congee, cream of wheat with honey and a pinch of cardamom, mashed sweet potato with butter and nutmeg, soft scrambled eggs cooked low in a double boiler so they never went rubbery, poached pears with vanilla. His body had to relearn that eating was not the same as danger. Senna understood this the way she understood any compromised system. You didn't force it, you approached it from the correct angle and you waited. The second month was rebuilding, roasted vegetables cut small, white fish poached in broth, lentil soup with enough body that it actually stuck, a short rib braised for 6 hours until it came apart at the touch, no knife required. By the third month, the tremor in Cray's right hand had narrowed. It was still there, it would probably always be there, but it had become smaller, like a figure in the distance instead of the room. He started eating at the kitchen island instead of the desk. He stopped hiding the effort. He still didn't speak much. Neither did she. One morning she was making corn chowder, and he was reading something on his phone, and she said, without planning to, "The Delacourt pension routing never resolved." I found where it went. It passed through 3 shell accounts before it dissolved, and the sequence format was identical to yours. Cray looked up slowly. "I'm not recording this," Senna said. "I'm not wired. I'm telling you because you already know that I know, and pretending otherwise wastes both our time." She stirred the pot. "I found a discrepancy in your Q2 logistics manifests. It's not yours. Someone inside is skimming. The routing sequence belongs to Selig. I recognized it from the Delacourt investigation. He had a contract with them before you took over the accounts." The kitchen held itself very still. "How long have you known?" Cray said. 2 months. "Why wait?" "Because I needed to be certain. I don't make accusations from incomplete data." She turned to face him. "He's still inside your operation. He's not finished with you." Cray looked at her for a long moment with the expression he sometimes had, like she was a column that kept producing a result he hadn't built into his projections. "You could have taken this to the FBI," he said. "You know how." "I could have." "Why didn't you?" She thought about her mother's machine. She thought about routing sequences and the 3 months she'd spent understanding his books well enough to be sure. She thought about a bowl of congee at 1 in the morning and a man trying very hard not to let anyone see his hands shake. "I work for you," Senna said, "not against you." She put a bowl of chowder on the island and pushed it across to his side. He picked up the spoon. Selig moved on a Thursday. Senna was at the prep station at 6:30 when she heard it, something from the service corridor that had no business being there at that hour. Not loud, just wrong, the way a number is wrong, not obviously false, just slightly off from where it should sit. She turned off the burner. Dowd came through the kitchen door at a half-run. He had a phone against his ear and his free hand at his waistband, in the way hands moved in this building when something was happening. "Backstairs," Dowd said to her, not stopping. "Now, 16 floors down, parking garage, black SUV, keys in it." "Where is he?" Senna said. "Miss Bragg." "Where is Cray?" The kitchen door opened again. Cray came through it. He was in his jacket, no tie. There was blood on his right sleeve. Not his, she assessed from the angle and the volume. His hands were tremoring harder than she'd seen them in weeks. Adrenaline. She had read enough medical literature by now to know adrenaline made it worse. He looked at her. "You need to leave," he said. "How many men does Selig have in the building?" A pause. 4 confirmed. "Hours." "Dowd has 3 at the elevator bank, 2 on the stairs." She looked at the kitchen. She looked at it the way she looked at balance sheets. Where are the structural gaps? Where does the architecture not hold? They'll expect you to move through the main corridor, she said. She crossed to the commercial refrigerator and dragged it 6 inches from the wall with both hands, enough to break the service door sightline. You stay as this room. 1 entrance. You control the angles. She looked at Dowd. Call your men from the elevator bank in here. All 3. Make this a bottleneck. Cray stared at her. I mapped this floor when I started, Senna said. She pulled a heavy cast-iron skillet from the hanging rack. I map every room I work in. It's a habit. She met his eyes. Do you have a better plan? Something passed between Cray and Dowd, brief and wordless. Dowd, Cray said. Get the men. What followed was not like anything she had a reference point for. It was loud and fast, and it smelled like burned air, and the half-braised chicken still sitting cold on the stove. Senna stayed behind the kitchen island with the skillet in both hands, cataloguing what she could hear. Dowd's voice, sharp and directing, 2 shots close, a third near the service entrance that ended quickly. She kept her back flat against the island. She kept the skillet up. She kept her breathing even the way she'd kept her voice, even in every conference room where someone had tried to tell her that her findings were incorrect. She didn't need to use it. She was glad she kept it anyway. When the building went quiet again, Cray was still standing. He had a cut above his eyebrow that Dowd was pressing a folded kitchen towel against. His face was the color of old paper. His hands were shaking hard. Senna set the skillet down. She went to the stove. She turned the burner back on. Sit down, she said. We need to. There is nothing you need to do in the next 20 minutes that Dowd can't handle. She put the Dutch oven back over the heat. The braising liquid had gone tepid, but it was recoverable. Sit down. He sat. She stirred the chicken without turning around. She heard his breathing, shallow at first, then slower as the adrenaline started to lose its grip on him. The kitchen came back to smelling like thyme and garlic and something warm. You knew the floor plan, Cray said. I know every floor plan I work in. Why? Because I have spent my whole career in rooms where I needed to know where the exits were. She adjusted the heat. Whistleblowers learn that early. Silence. Then you could have taken the SUV. I know. Why didn't you? She set down the spoon and turned to face him. He was looking at the island with the expression of a man doing a calculation he hadn't expected to be running, the kind where the result keeps coming back different from the prediction. Because I knew something you didn't know I knew, she said, and that was useful. I don't leave a job unfinished. She put a glass of water in front of him. Then she placed her hand over his right hand, not hard, just present, the way you set a weight on a page to stop it lifting in a draft. His hand went still. She took her hand back. She returned to the stove. Neither of them spoke. Later, long after Dowd's cleanup, after the medic had dealt with the cut on Cray's forehead, after the building had returned to its specific quality of nighttime quiet, Cray was still at the island. The chicken had been served and finished. The braising liquid, finished with butter and fresh parsley, had gone down without incident. His color was back. The tremor was at its ordinary background level, the familiar low frequency she had stopped registering as absence and started registering as baseline. Senna was washing the Dutch oven. The warm water felt like the most ordinary thing in the world. Selig is handled, Cray said. I know. Your data closed it, the routing sequence. The numbers always close it, she said, one way or another. He turned his water glass slowly on the island. You could have been in the garage. Dowd had a car waiting. I know. Why weren't you? She dried her hands on a clean towel. She thought about 11 years of finding what didn't belong. She thought about what she'd told him 3 months ago. I work for you, not against you, and how she'd meant it then and still meant it, which probably said something about her that she would examine at some point when she was less exhausted. Because I had information you needed, she said. And I don't walk away from positions where I'm useful. I want to change our arrangement, Cray said. She turned to look at him. Not the cooking. That stays. He looked at the kitchen, the clean counters, the hanging pots, the Dutch oven draining on the rack, the room that had been abandoned for 8 months before she walked into it and started making breakfast. I want to add your actual function, the forensic work, the accounts. That's a different job than cooking. Yes, it pays differently. I'm aware. She crossed her arms. She looked at him the way she'd looked at the Delacourt manifests, carefully, from several angles, checking for the variable that didn't fit. She didn't find one. Full access to the logistics accounts, she said. Yes. My findings go only to you. Yes. And I keep the kitchen. Something in his face changed. Small, a fraction of a degree, the way a column shifted when you corrected a single entry. But she saw it. You keep the kitchen, Cray said. Senna uncrossed her arms. She went to the refrigerator and found the sourdough she'd brought in that morning. She found the olive oil, a good one, dark green, from the back of the pantry where someone with taste had left it. She poured some into a small dish, added flaky salt, carried it to the island. She tore the bread with her hands, not cut, torn. My mother did this at the start of every new arrangement, she said. Bread and oil. She said it meant the terms were honest. She held out half the loaf. Cray looked at it, then he reached out. His right hand, the one that shook, and took it from her. His grip was steady. He dipped the bread. He ate it without spilling anything. Outside, the harbor glittered against the dark in the way it always did, indifferent to the things that happened in the buildings above it. Somewhere below them, Dowd was finishing what needed to be finished. The city kept moving the way cities do. In the kitchen on the 42nd floor, the bread ran out slowly. Neither of them hurried it. Two people who had each spent years calculating exits sat in the quiet, and for the first time in a long time, neither one of them was watching the door.